got a little kitty here, Freddie. I've been playing with him for a bit, so I thought I would just record a little off the cuff. Here, my good buddy Sam asked me the other day, like, why do I invest in coaching, consulting, and membership, mentorships, and stuff like that if I already know the strategy? And it took me a while to sort of, ponder on this and think about it and have a look into who's that person I want to become. So in this video today, I just want to break down what the purpose of investing means. And it doesn't mean you invest or maybe you have in your own time into coaching, into courses, into whatever it may be. Like, us as individuals, as entrepreneurs, we do thrive on knowledge, right? Like there's a whole boom when it comes to the wisdom economy. So, there's different types of buyers that you can break down. For example, actually, before I get into that, you're not buying the info in the way that I perceive it at this level. You basically buy who you become in the room that you enter. You basically buy who you become in the room that you enter. That is how I would summarize the reason why I invest, right? And early on in my own journey, I would invest everything if I wanted to leap forward, right? And I would enter the room and I would learn all the information, and everything was new when it came to strategy. Was sort of like understanding funnels and websites and client acquisition and retention and email marketing and whatnot on every single platform. So it felt like the investment was worth it on a, results-driven basis. And then as time went by and you get better, you sort of sharpen your sword and all the rest of it, you understand or you realize that what you're hearing in another room, in another coaching program, and something else, 80% of it is something you already know, or at least that's what used to happen to me. I'm like, oh, it's the same sort of strategy that this other person had, just twisted in a different way or said with a different perspective, and that was also cool. But there was always sort of like that 20% that you didn't know that sort of unlocked things. And recently for me, when I invested in coaching, I've been doing it over the last, 5 years or so. I remember entering that newest room and I was like, okay, I sort of already know all of this stuff. In fact, some of it was a little old or misaligned with where I wanted to go. It was all about VAs and SOPs and setting up this and that. But I really liked the person that I invested in, right? So I see it as 3 different types of buyers. Like when you invest, or at least again, coming from my lens, and I don't want to skew anybody's opinion, but this is how I see it. So hopefully what I'm saying will resonate, or you'll find a little bit of resonance in here. But for me, number 1 is an info buyer, somebody who buys education, buys courses, buys the implementation, buys that knowledge they're going to grab to fill in a gap that they don't know. Number 2 is the buyer who buys results. Somebody who's seen a case study, said, oh, this person, this coach, this, service, or whatever it may be that I'm investing in, I'm buying into the results because, Tom, Dick, and Harry could also get those results and they seem like the company or the coach for me. So I'm buying into the hope that I'm also going to get those results. And in BizOp and all of that, it could be like 10K a month or 5K a month. In fitness, it could be losing the body fat or gaining the muscle, or whatever. Then the third tier, which I've noticed more recently that I've bought into over the last couple of years, is you buy into who the person is. So you've got info buyers, results buyers, and then people who buy you. That's the people who literally get paid to exist. Now, as a customer or a client, when I bought into that, I realized I buy into the identity I'm going to become, right? And I'm also buying the level of proximity. Like I found myself paying and then going, I'll never watch the course or whatever, but what I will do is have that proximity with the mentor. So if I have a mental thing that I need to unblock or a strategic unblock, I'm literally reaching out, and within minutes I have access. So I'm buying that proximity and the identity of the person I want to become. So to me, even in those sorts of rooms, it's those little nuances of how you're going to write this, how you're going to do that. For example, in one of the rooms that I was in lately, somebody started talking about an offer matrix. And, back in the day, I used to say, build a business, build an online business, build this, build that. But the word build in itself requires a lot of work when you see it from a copywriting angle. When people start to change the word build into this is what you have to do, this is what you have to install or duplicate, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more tangible, a lot more doable. So I'm only able to pick up these little nuances when I have people that are better than me in the thing that I want to do. And this is just a very small example, right? So for me, the room is the real ROI. I'm going to say that again because it blew my mind when I thought about it. The room was the real ROI because, a lot of people will say it's woo-woo or whatever, but to me, the energy, the frequency, or the language around, who you're talking to, the people you're surrounded with, the winners you're surrounded with, they almost set a new standard in the way that you perceive things, in the way of what you thought was possible, right? I always find myself questioning, am I doing this thing at the level that I could be doing it? Or have I sort of dimmed the lights a little bit? Because that room helps me transform what I think is possible. I've heard some people, I don't remember who's said it, maybe you might know, and if you do, comment below. People don't buy coaching, they buy coaches. I believe they don't buy coaching, they don't buy coaches, they buy becoming. They buy who they are becoming, that identity shift, right? So having thought of all of this, maybe this video isn't getting somewhere, but it was really important for me to understand, because when I also create my own rooms, there's sort of the strategy and there's also the mindset. And for me, lately, as I have been evolving in myself, it feels like shedding snakeskin almost and finding that person that you want to be. I'm now in this era, recently had a baby, scaled the business to 7 figures. We've done all of that stuff. And for me, it doesn't matter what strategy I give someone, unless I can teach them how to think, how to be, how to show up. So on one side, when people come through, they're like, oh, you've taught me a lot more in terms of purpose, in terms of how I'm tackling things, mostly inner work and who you are becoming. That's also a big thing for me. It doesn't matter how great the funnel is, how optimized the sales page is, if you don't feel aligned. And the same way I've sort of entered rooms and met incredible people, I always aim to ask myself, so I'm really grateful for my buddy Sam, who was like, why do you invest? I also put that on its head on when somebody buys your service, whether it's mentorship, group, this, that, even just a $50 digital product, my goal is to give them a better room, give them a better perception, but also teach them how to be, how to become in one way or another. And that's sort of been my favorite thing in the world nowadays. And I still ponder on it. I think we're still evolving, and in this era of AI and info overload, insight is what is becoming scarce, right? The true, real, live experiences that you can look at and reflect. I always tell myself, talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not just all a giant success story. Get vulnerable when you have to, and all the rest of it. And I believe the way things are shifting will be, co-created space, because there's no dependency on an individual. We do this sort of together and build communities, whether online or offline. And in that process of co-creation, we find things, right? It almost becomes like a decentralized system, the same way projects, like blockchain or whatever, in entrepreneur land found their way. I also believe when you create those rooms or communities, that's where you truly transcend. So in summary, we've got three types of buyers, right? The people who invest in education, the people who invest in results, and the people who invest in proximity and who buy who you are. So nothing more, nothing less today. The room is the real ROI. And I hope you picked something out of that. If you have, let me know in the comments below, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.